Hey guys, today we're going to be discussing one of the most iconic action sci-fi movies of the 1980s.
That's right. This movie really put a young, little-known director named James Cameron on the map in a big way.
This film also starred a little guy you might have heard of, Mr. Universe winner Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's right, folks. Get ready for the breakdown of 1984's The Terminator. Hello, fellow watchers. Thank you for joining us. We're your hosts, Jeremy and Josh, and this is looking to be a pretty good discussion about the original Terminator movie.
Yes, sir. But before we dive into that, I just want to let everyone know that here at The Watch, we review movies that are at least 10 years old and see what kind of impact they made or are still making on culture and the film industry. We rate those movies in 4 categories. Number 1, the level of impact and success it had when it was released. Number 2, how relevant it is today. Number 3, our own personal enjoyment of this movie. And number 4, is it a midnight watch? But enough of that. What are some quick facts you can give everyone, Jeremy?
All right, let's get right into it. This is directed by James Cameron. Screenplay was also by him. The budget was $6.4 million, and the box office was $38.5 million. So this made some bank. That was just in the USA and Canada. So worldwide, it was $78.48 million. That's some change right there. Pretty awesome. We got the soundtrack by Brad Fiedel. I can't remember what I should have written this down, but he did a different time change with this than 4x4 or even 5/8 when he did the music. So that's why when you're listening to it, it's like a little bit more intense because he was playing around with that. So that was pretty legit. This is starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, Michael Biehn, Earl Boone, Lance Henriksen, and believe it or not, Bill Paxton is in this movie. Did you see him?
No, I can't remember.
He was the punk with like the spiky hair.
Oh,
yeah, dude.
I didn't realize that was him, but I can totally see that now.
Right, and then the guy next to him.
Young.
Yeah, the guy next to him was the Terminator or the shapeshifter from the X-Files series, and he was actually the main villain in the second Mortal Kombat movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah, pretty legit.
That's cool.
Yeah, so this movie is pretty awesome. I'm not a huge fan of the Terminator series, so coming to this, I wanted to review this movie because it's the first one, and it's just, I figure like let's start where the classic one is, because there's been so many. I feel bad for fans of the Terminator series, because unlike horror movie series where like the sequels keep getting worse and worse and the fans don't care, or they're like whatever, right? The fans are really hoping that the sequels are going to be awesome after T2 came out. And like they haven't. They've been horrible. And
progressively worse. Though I've not seen the most recent one. Have you? You haven't seen that one either, right?
No, I haven't seen that or Genesis. So
okay.
Yeah, I literally haven't seen them because I'm not a big fan of the Terminator series.
Right.
But no, I feel bad though. It's just like every time, like Terminator Salvation, Genesis, and was that Dark Fury? No. That's another one. Man, I'm terrible with the names today. Anyways.
So it doesn't matter. No one liked it.
Nobody liked that movie.
It was not a hit, that's for sure.
What was the name of that movie? That's right. It didn't happen. But all of those movies.
Happened.
Right. All of those movies were supposed to be the beginning of a new trilogy. And actually, the only Terminator movie that I actually saw in theaters was Terminator Salvation with my friend Brandon, who was huge Terminator fan, so he was like super psyched, and I actually really enjoyed that in theaters. I thought it was a great experience, and then I watched it a few years later and I was like, this movie's actually not that good.
Right.
But anyways, going back to this movie is a big passion project by James Cameron. Like, he was filming Piranha 2 at the time, and he had a nightmare about this cybernetic organism type of thing, like dragging itself through the kitchen with like kitchen knives. And he just had this nightmare about that. And then he was super inspired by John Carpenter's Halloween. So he started writing this movie, and actually he wrote it as a horror movie. And he was surprised when people were like, that was a great action movie. Since if you watch it, like the actual feel of it's different than most of the other Terminator movies.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that too. I mean, probably getting ahead of myself a little bit, but especially by the end of the movie, I was really picking up a strong horror vibe from it. And yeah, come to find out that wasn't far off from what it was kind of intended to be, because it definitely has more of a horror vibe than any of the other ones.
Right. Instead of Michael Myers, you have this unstoppable other guy that literally can't be killed, pretty much. That
Right.
just keeps going after. So it's pretty awesome. We got a lot to talk about this movie. This is going to be awesome. So let's jump into that synopsis.
Yes, sir. So, in 1984 Los Angeles, a cyborg assassin known as a Terminator arrives from 2029. Kyle Reese, a human soldier sent back in time from the same year, arrives shortly afterwards. The Terminator begins systematically killing women named Sarah Connor, whose addresses it finds in the telephone directory. It tracks the last Sarah Connor to a nightclub, but Kyle rescues her. The pair steal a car and escape with the Terminator pursuing them in a police car. As they hide in a parking lot, Kyle explains to Sarah that an artificial intelligence defense network known as Skynet and created by Cyberdyne Systems will become self-aware in the near future and initiate a nuclear holocaust. Sarah's future son, John, will rally the survivors and lead a resistance movement against Skynet and its army of machines. With the resistance on the verge of victory, Skynet sent a Terminator back in time to kill Sarah before John is born to prevent the formation of the resistance. The Terminator, a Cyberdyne Systems Model 101, or 101, is an efficient killing machine with a powerful metal endoskeleton and an external layer of living tissue that makes it appear human. Kyle and Sarah are apprehended by police after another encounter with the Terminator. The Terminator attacks the police station, killing police officers in its attempt to locate Sarah. Kyle and Sarah escape, steal another car, and take refuge in a motel where they assemble pipe bombs and plan their next move. Kyle admits that he has been in love with Sarah since John gave him a photograph of her, and that he traveled through time to save her. Reciprocating his feelings, Sarah kisses Kyle, and they commence to get busy. It's baby making time. The Terminator kills Sarah's mother. I added that part.
I was wondering. I was like, that doesn't sound like Wikipedia.
The Terminator kills Sarah's mother and impersonates her when Sarah, unaware of the Terminator's ability to mimic voices, attempts to contact her via telephone. When they realize the Terminator has located them, they escape in a pickup truck while it chases them on a motorcycle. In the ensuing chase, Kyle is wounded by gunfire while throwing pipe bombs at the Terminator. Enraged, Sarah knocks the Terminator off his motorcycle, but loses control of the truck, which flips over. The Terminator, now bloodied and badly damaged, hijacks a tank truck and attempts to run down Sarah, but Kyle slides a pipe bomb into the tanker's hose tube, causing an explosion that burns the flesh from the Terminator's endoskeleton. It pursues them into a factory, where Kyle activates machinery to confuse the Terminator. He jams a final pipe bomb into the Terminator's abdomen, blowing it apart, injuring Sarah and killing himself. The Terminator's torso reactivates and grabs Sarah. She breaks free and lures it into a hydraulic press and then crushes it. Months later, a pregnant Sarah is traveling through Mexico, recording audio tapes to pass on to her unborn son, John. At a gas station, a boy takes an instant photograph, or Polaroid, of her, and she buys it. The same photograph that John will give to Kyle in the future. And there you have it. From Wikipedia, the synopsis of Terminator with a few colorful bits added by myself.
Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun.
I should not try to be funny on purpose. That's just not good.
It always works. What are you talking about? So the thing that was pretty funny with this too, though, was where was I going with this?
I don't know, but it was going to be funny.
That was going to be funny. Yeah, I shouldn't try to be funny either. I thought it was funny. So I watched the Terminator series backwards, sort of. Not the whole series. I watched Rise of the Machines, and then a few days later I watched T2, and then watched this movie again, which I've seen these three movies years ago. Mm-hmm. And they get progressively better if you watch them that way. It's pretty good. So...
what?
I definitely think this has the Terminator series has what you called the Cameron effect, and that's basically when James Cameron is not directing, they're not good. And
Sure.
okay, I just made that up. Nobody calls it the Cameron effect, but
It sounded believable to me. I think because it's true.
well, the thing that's interesting though is like, so James Cameron, he like, this is a big passion project for him. So he actually, there's some different stories about this, but when he was doing filming Piranha 2,
Which, have you seen that one?
I never did. I saw the first
Me neither.
one and then I saw the remake, but yeah, I never saw the second one. I actually didn't know there was a second movie, like original movie.
Yeah, me neither. But since that's his first movie, I kind of want to watch it.
Right.
Which usually the second movie of any, especially horror movie, they're usually pretty bad. So I never would have paid attention except that he directed it. So now I'm
Exactly. But the thing that's funny though is like, there's some controversy about how much of that movie he actually filmed, or if he was fired like halfway through it and he just got the writing credit. Same like we were talking about earlier with the movie with with Don Coscarelli with Silver Bullet, where he like directed half of the movie, but he didn't get the credit for it. This is kind of the opposite, where
Right.
James Cameron directed half the movie and did get the credit for it. But anyways, so while Piranha 2 he was dealing with that stuff, he was really getting the Terminator script together. And it's funny because Terminator 2 is more the movie he actually wanted to make, but they didn't have the special effects at
Right.
the time. And they were going to have 2 Terminators come back with a liquid metal one, but they couldn't do it. So he had to settle for this. And it worked out really good. So he basically sold the rights to the Terminator franchise before the first movie came out to his producer in order for exchange for him to direct the movie. And so he wanted creative control over this. And he didn't get the rights back to the Terminator series until literally last year.
Oh,
So
wow.
that could be why he wasn't super involved with the Terminator series after that, because
Sure.
once he got to do Terminator 2, for him that was the end of the series, because like they defeat Skynet, crisis averted, and then Terminator 3. Oh wait, we got to keep the show going, so we
Right.
got to create new drama, which was handled horribly. And so, anyways, yeah, the thing I also really like too is that I like watching directors' first movies or the directorial debut where they have creative control. Like, Bottle Rocket or El Mariachi or Duel or
Right.
like Following, all those movies, because you really get to see directors doing, they're working as hard as they can to get this film out there. And so then
Right.
like when that becomes a hit, then they get to do the next film. And normally that one's like amazing because they actually have money so they can do what they want to do.
Right. But that being said, I do love, same as you, like we'll take El Mariachi, for example, which I totally thought about that movie while I was watching this, just to review it. And so El Mariachi, Robert Rodriguez had like no money to make that movie. So he had to like create even how he was going to make some of those shots. Like I know like whenever he had like a rolling camera shot, it was, him sitting in some old wheelchair and his buddy pushing him along a piece of plywood to get that smooth, shot. And it's like little things like that he had to really dig deep and be creative. And I love seeing that in first time directors, because usually they have to dig super deep and, they don't have the money.
Oh,
So
yeah.
How creative can we be? And I kind of got that vibe, kind of like to what El Mariachi was to Desperado, which was the follow-up movie
Right.
in that series. And that movie's, full on Hollywood, big budget.
Oh yeah.
But you could totally see where it was going before he had the money to make the movie he really wanted to make. And Terminator kind of feels like that compared to T2, except that some of the practical effects that he did were just super awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless.
I totally agree with you. Like I actually, so I went into this movie because the first time I saw this, oh yeah, we should talk about the first time we saw this movie.
Oh yeah. So Jeremy, when was the first time you saw this movie?
All right. Well, let me tell you, Josh. First time I saw this movie, it's probably about 15 years ago, and I thought it was crap. And then I watched T2 because people wouldn't shut up about Terminator 2 being the best action movie ever made. And
Sure.
so I watched that and I liked it. I thought it was good. And then I moved on with my life and kind of forgot about it. And so, watched this movie recently again, and we'll talk about that in a second. How about yourself? When's the first time you saw this?
So when T2 came out, I think I was, I don't know, junior high or something. And the movie was huge. I mean, just the biggest thing. The video games were huge, on Nintendo and Sega Genesis. And so I remember those vividly. just the quotes from the movies. Well, especially T2.
Right.
But everybody was still quoting, "I'll be back," which was, the big line from the first movie, but I think he still used it in every single one.
Right.
It's one of the most recognizable quotes in, movie history.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyways, I feel like I had seen the movie because all my friends had seen it, but I obviously wasn't allowed to watch R-rated movies. Right. When we were younger. And so I didn't see it until, probably, I don't know. Actually, it might have been in the last 15 years or so. I probably saw it for the first time. I've seen it several times, but it was funny because I remember seeing the second one first, actually, because that's the one I was most excited about because that was, the big deal.
Right.
And super cool action movie. And then going and watching this one, I was just, seeing how, the Terminator becomes who he is, or us seeing what he is. I really enjoyed it. Now, watching it again, I almost didn't enjoy it quite as much because I think nostalgic wise, just kind of thinking back to when I was a kid, that the T2, I don't know, kind of holds a bigger place in my heart just because of, how much that impacted me and just my friends and, conversation or playing Terminator in the backyard or something like that.
Right? Or like, was that Super Nintendo game Terminator versus RoboCop?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. That was a great one.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I still have that actually on Super Nintendo. Yeah, I was
nice.
Free. Yeah, me watched this movie when this movie came out in '91. So I was 4. I did not see this movie when it came out. Or I'm sorry, T2, not Terminator 1. Terminator 1. I was a twinkle in the Lord's eye. So
And I was 4 years old. So yeah, I also had not seen that one.
Right.
I didn't actually realize until later how old the first movie was. And then, so while watching this movie again, and since I've watched it the first time or first couple times, I've seen a lot more action movies from the early 80s, and I love John Carpenter now. Like I'm just a huge John Carpenter fan, and I feel like I like his movies a little bit better than this one, even though it was kind of the other way around.
Oh, back in the day
when I was a little bit younger.
That makes sense to me. I feel like John Carpenter's got more of a specific flavor versus James Cameron. Cameron normally does way bigger budget movies that are kind of more broad, like more audience will actually enjoy it. Like more
Sure.
I can't speak the English today, but yeah. Anyways, I could see that. But I will say though, watching this movie this time, I wanted to go back and watch this one and review this one because I feel like when you hear the Terminator, people are like, what's the best Terminator movie? Well, T2. Everybody says right. T2. But then I looked it up, and there's some people talking about it like actually still the first movie is the best Terminator movie out of them all.
Right. I was reading some of that too as the most, I don't know. The story has to really develop in the first one versus the second movie. It's just a thrill ride, just action nonstop. Right. All the way through, which is great. I mean, that's kind of what you want in an action movie, but this one's got a real story.
Yeah.
And it's a lot heavier, I think, on the sci-fi. And then, like I was saying, the horror element. So there's really a lot more going on in this movie. And then plus those special effects, there's not a lot of them, but when they show up, they're actually really, really cool. And if you're a fan of practical special effects, you can't help but get excited about it when you watch it.
Well, James Cameron, it's fun watching his career as he has grown. And because, I mean, like after this movie, he did Aliens, which is just like Alien on steroids, pretty much.
Right.
And it's so much fun. Bill Paxton, so many good lines. Oh, man, game over, man. But yeah, and then he went on to do the Abyss, and then he did Terminator 2 finally. Yeah, you're right, though. It was like 8 years later he did the sequel. So I actually really enjoyed watching this movie because it was so 80s. I did not remember how 80s it is. Like when they're going to that banging nightclub, Technor, right. Listening to those hot tracks, you know?
Which that name of that nightclub totally describes the movie kind of.
Well, I know it's funny. Yeah, I read that basically that is the name now of the genre that him and Ridley Scott created with Blade Runner in this movie is Technor. It's this noir film set in the future or whatever. And yeah, so I was just like, oh man, that's so awesome.
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
No, I gotta say, freaking John Carpenter kind of wrecked this movie for me because I feel like when you look at like when we rewatching Escape from New York when we did that one, I don't know, a couple months ago. That one, I don't know, I just enjoyed that one so much more, and I don't know what it is. Again, it's probably just John Carpenter's flair. But the other thing, I gotta tie this in real quick. One thing I noticed, I feel like this movie has a really bland soundtrack. And I don't feel like there's necessarily any reason for it to not have it, but there's not a lot of melody going on.
No,
there's
there's
a lot of just like pulsing. And I get it. I kind of understand why, but it's just there's not a lot of color happening until, they get, the motel scene.
They get busy.
And they get busy. And then all of a sudden it's this beautiful piano music,
which is like the full theme.
Right. But it kind of makes sense because they're creating the savior, basically. And so all of a sudden, it's this beautiful thing happening. I know, it's a little...
It just totally reminds me of the Adam Sandler movie Click when they go to the making of, and they're like, and he's like, they're making you. And he's like, oh God. No, I actually...
But cheesily, I think that's kind of what happened, though, because as you listen to the whole... There's hardly any... like I said, color with a synth track going on versus you listen to John Carpenter or even when we did. Oh, hey there, Ophelia.
Yeah, Ophelia just jumped into my lap right now. I guess she wants to jump. This is my dog, by the way. I guess she wants to. No, she's not saying it. She wants me to feed her, so I'll feed you in a few minutes.
But yeah, but even when we did Phantasm, just there's a lot more going on with the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
And it just really hit me after having seen those other movies, just how bland that part of this movie is. Though, not to take away from the movie, it's just something that really stood out to me and just kind of made me appreciate the soundtracks on some of those other ones.
Right, which is...
A little more.
Which is funny because, like I said, I wasn't alive in 1984. Obviously, this movie was a big hit. But I feel like Terminator 2, so like the theme song, like you're talking about during the motel scene when it's the really nice romantic song that's playing, that's like the main theme, though. You're right, for John Connor, that's in T2. Like you hear that more than you hear the whole like bum, 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 bum. And in this movie, you don't hear that as much. So I that actually stood out to me because in Terminator 2, that's like literally you see the credits and you hear that nice theme song going. It's kind of, so I agree. I was kind of surprised that it definitely was just like normal 80s. It didn't have
a lot of those other 80s movies. There is a theme song that kind of, I don't know, just seemed like a very 80s thing to have this kind of catchy tune as part of, the movie that keeps popping up during a lot of movies. And this one just didn't have it, which I had not noticed before. Yeah.
No, I definitely agree. And it's interesting too because let's get into the making of this real quick. Yeah. Because just to go through some stuff that Arnold Schwarzenegger actually, like, they had to really talk to him to get the role because he thought it was going to be like a crap movie. And
well, didn't they want him to be Kyle Reese originally?
Let's see. I got some notes. Yeah, it says Arnold was originally trying to be the hero, but then Cameron liked him so much that he asked him to be the villain instead. So yeah,
right.
Which, to be honest, that was a great call. I mean, obviously because Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Terminator, but I really like Michael Biehn in this movie. I think that he was really, really good, and I like him a lot. Anyways, he's always a treat seeing him in a movie, but I think he did a really good job of being like almost like frantic at the beginning of the movie, and then he kind of softens up the longer he's around Sarah. So when he proclaims his love for her, like, I bought it. I was totally like, that makes sense. And then the way that he kind of closes up immediately after that, and she can see it's not Stockholm syndrome. Like if he had said that to her right when he got in the car, and he's like, don't do exactly what I say, and blah blah blah, and he's yelling at her, and she's like freaking out because like that doesn't. Anyways, so the movie makes sense. So like their relationship grows as they're going on, and she starts to believe him instead of him just being some crazy guy that saved her from some random shooter. But anyways, yeah. So Arnold, though, he was fresh off of Conan the Barbarian, and so they got him to sign up for this movie. and he was training for it, and then they were going to film it, and then he had to go film Conan the Destroyer before he did this movie. So during that time, instead of James Cameron getting another gig, he actually went and worked on the screenplay again and fleshed it out more. And I have to say, I think the screenplay in this movie is very strong. Like, there's several times where I was like, what about this plot hole? And then, like, literally the next scene, they fix that plot hole, or they do that. And I thought that was really cool. And it was funny too. There was one guy who actually asked Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's like, "What's the next movie you're in?" And he's like quoted as like some crap movie, and which is funny because then now he like, especially after this movie like blew him up because like he was popular for Conan. Yeah. Conan was a big hit, but then like this movie was like, oh, that's why there's such big hype about Terminator 2 when he's coming back to be the Terminator. But I actually think, though, Arnold does a much better job in Terminator 2. Number one, he has a lot more to do in that movie. He's a lot more human, and it makes him really enjoyable.
Right.
And I think he's a better actor by that time. It's like almost 10 years later, so he's a pretty good actor.
Oh, for sure. And that's actually something I noticed, too. I feel like it was, at least initially, there's a lot of, like, melodrama happening in this movie. And I don't know if that's just because he was a young director or if it just kind of went with, I don't know how movies were kind of in the 80s, but it just seems a little overacted.
Oh, yeah.
At least initially. And then I don't know if I just got used to it or if it got better as the movie went on.
I think you got used to it because Michael Biehn is kind of freaking out like the whole movie. And especially Lance Henriksen when he's all like, when the Terminator's like tearing apart the police station, then he's like, "Hang on!" and he jumps out, goes around the corner, and he's like, "Hey, you!" He gets like blown away. Which, by the way, Lance Henriksen was good friends with James Cameron, and so when James Cameron went to go meet with the producers to pitch the movie, he had Lance Henriksen show up in the Terminator outfit, like a leather jacket, and he went in there and like kicked the door in and sat down, pushed stuff around, and then he just stared at the producers for like 5 minutes until James Cameron got there. To play the whole role. And so James Cameron's like, of course I'm going to put you in this movie. Lance Henriksen, I mean, who doesn't love Lance Henriksen? Who, of course, he has the great role inside the next movie, Aliens, where he plays the robot in that movie. I can't remember his name, but that was a great role. But
wait, he was in and also reoccurring role too, right? In the Alien movies?
I think no, I don't think so. Maybe he's in the third one. It's been a minute since I've seen it. I know.
I feel like he was, but yeah.
There's a whole controversy with Alien 3 and how that was handled, which again, that's another directorial debut by one of the greats. And so, okay, going back to Terminator real quick.
Right.
Let's see what else we got here. Stan Winston did the design for the Terminator for this movie. That's pretty legit. Stan Winston is like, he's a legend in special effects. Have you ever heard of Stan Winston?
I'm drawing a total blank right now. Jeremy, tell me some of the great works of Stan Winston.
I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Well, while you do that, I found out that I guess they really wanted O.J. Simpson to play the Terminator. Like he was a front runner before they got Arnold.
What?
And then they were like, well, I don't know, it might tarnish his kind of good guy image that he has. Which is kind of ironic.
That's so bad. We
all know how that went down.
Oh yeah, that's horrible. They turned him down because they thought he wouldn't be able to like portray the idea of a murderer or something.
Well, they just didn't want to, typecast him because he was such a good, likable guy, and he always had kind of positive roles and whatnot. We don't want to tarnish his reputation, which he did very well on his own.
Yeah, yes, he did. Absolutely. So let's see right here. We've got Stan Winston, best known for his work in the Terminator series, Jurassic Park, Aliens, Predator, Iron Man, Edward Scissorhands. Like the dude's freaking legend, and he passed away in 2008. So, but yeah, big legend there. Let's see what else we got here. We got also too. Linda Hamilton, actually, there's some conflicting reports about this. I'm not sure if it sprained or broke her ankle like right before this movie started. So she was in pain like the entire time. They had to wait till the very end of the filming schedule to actually shoot the scenes where she's running because she was in pain.
Oh wow!
So that's pretty intense. I thought that I thought she did a good job in this movie. And so I gotta say the writing credit to James Cameron is pretty awesome because in this movie she's like normal young woman who's just thrown into this horrible situation, and then she kind of, you know, she has to deal with it. And then in like T2, she's like freaking hard from the first scene. She's like
she's a boss all the way through,
like freaking beast. And you're just, oh man, she's another Ripley on a different level. And it's just, it was cool because I totally I forgot how different she was in this movie, and so that was pretty awesome.
I did too, actually. Yeah, I was like, oh, she's so like innocent and, you know, having a good time.
Right. And I mean, she's so likable. I love the scene too when they show her having a bad day as the waitress in the beginning. She brings the stuff out, and then randomly the little kid just like puts the ice cream scoop in her apron, and then she just gives him this look of like, "Are you serious?"
Right.
Like I was like, "Oh man, that's going in my notes. That's so funny."
Right.
Oh, I love the foreshadowing when the Terminator first rolls up to the first Sarah Connor house, and there's that little toy truck, and he rolls over the toy truck, and then at the end of the movie, he gets run over by that exact same looking truck. Right. That was pretty awesome.
That was very well. And speaking of the violence, I thought there was a lot of off-screen violence for like, I don't know, almost. It felt like almost the first half of the movie.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I actually,
and then it finally blows. I think at the nightclub is when it finally kicks off. But
well, even then, and then even in the police station when he's blowing away people, like you don't see I mean, you see a lot of people get shot in that scene, but definitely not like, it's not as okay. So like the second movie, and from then on, like they get pretty graphic, but not like horror graphic or whatever, but they don't shy away from people getting shot and stuff.
Right.
I wouldn't say these
classic
movies,
violence and
I wouldn't say these
movie.
Exactly. I wouldn't say these movies are gory. Which if this movie was gory, that would make it more of a horror vibe. But I actually
was that?
No, go ahead.
But that horror vibe is definitely there just because like that whole Michael Myers thing where he's just relentlessly pursuing. Yes. You know, he can't be stopped, and it's just like, how are we going to get away from this guy? So that, you know, creeping death. Well, it's not even creeping. He's coming.
Oh yeah,
full tilt. But strong horror vibe.
So I thought the Terminator was going to be a lot more wooden, but the fact that like he can manipulate people and how he talks and stuff, like I was surprised at that because I thought he was going to be like straight up like super robotic. But then watching T2, I was like, oh, okay, he's not as robotic. And then watching this one, just watching the series backwards, I was like, oh, okay, so he's pretty good. But this movie, though, has all of the classic Terminator parts that's in every other movie, though. This sets up the bar 100%. Absolutely. I mean, you've got time travel, which they don't show the time travel in this movie. I'm surprised at that. I thought they were going to have the sphere like show up, you know?
But I think that kind of goes with the special effects where I really feel like James Cameron did a really great job of not overdoing it, not overselling it. Trying to keep it as believable as possible. And you don't even really see special effects until, about 37 minutes into the movie when you get the cyborg vision, and then you start to really realize what kind of a machine he is. And then when I think the first real special effects part is when his eye is all messed up.
Oh,
he's in the hotel room, and he's cleaning it up, and you're just like, that's totally just a head, right? You know, with some little robot eyes in there. That the close up shot of it. It's not even Arnold.
Right. I loved it. I thought it was
so cool. Yeah, it was great. Instead of there's only one part I think later when all of his skin's blown off and it looks like stop motion. Right. When just the metal machine is walking, and then it's a little clanky, but it's such a short part, you don't really think about it. It's not that big a deal.
Well, I always enjoy it. So here's the difference. Like I'm going to go to the Phantasm series, for example. Like the older movies, they have budget restrictions, and so some of the special effects are cheesy. And then you have the newest Phantasm movie, which came out in 2016, and all the special effects are CG, and I freaking hate it. I can't stand cheesy CG, but like cheesy stop motion or like actual practical effects, I love it. So this didn't take me out of the movie versus if they had done cheesy CG, which is why that just takes me out of the movie. I can't watch it. I've got. I thought there was a lot of car chases in this movie. I was surprised.
Oh, that's I'm glad you brought that up because that was also on my notes. I overlooked it, but yeah, there's some great car chases with like different vehicles too. It's not, some movies have like a really memorable car chase scene and it might be really extensive, but it's just two cars. But this one, there's a cop car, there's a truck, there's I don't know, some kind of sedan, the motorcycle. I mean, the motorcycle's iconic for the Terminator.
Right.
You got that big old tanker truck in it. I mean, there's a lot more chase scenes in this movie than I always forget that that's such a big part of it.
Right.
Though in the video game, that was always a big part where, you're driving on the motorcycle, and I guess it was the T2 game. Mm-hmm. And you're shooting off the back of the motorcycle as you're weaving through, traffic or whatever.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I liked, so bringing it back to the beginning part, I also liked how, if you've never seen this movie before, you don't know for sure who's the bad guy and who's the good guy at first. Because Michael Biehn, when he shows up, he steals the pants from the homeless guy. Right. And which makes me think like, okay, so he was going commando like the whole movie.
I know.
But
free balling all the way.
Going commando, but he had those sweet kicks the whole time, which that cracked me up. I was just like, yeah, you're wearing hobo jeans and Nikes.
And Nike, I know. Some pretty nice Nikes for the time. Though, hey, Arnold wearing those punk rocker boots.
Oh, dude.
That was pretty dope.
That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, and you know what? Arnold, man. That dude's a specimen. I mean, especially back in the day. I mean, actually, for an old man, that dude's still pretty jacked.
Yeah. He's only like, 5'10", 5'8", something like that? He's not a tall guy.
I think he's 6 foot on a good day, if you know what I mean. But,
he in this movie, he is jacked. Like, he just, I think he's only a year or two away from when he was Mr. Universe.
Right.
Oh, dude. But I think my favorite time period of seeing Arnold is like the 90s. Like for me, like right then it's like the perfect Arnold, like the way he looks. Because like in this movie, he still looks pretty young. His accent is super thick. He hasn't quite lost some of it. But yeah, very charismatic in the fact that he's a scary image in this. And that's all he needed to be in this movie, which is funny that he became so iconic for this role. Because even in the second movie, he's got so much more going for him in the second movie.
Right.
But this movie,
and I gotta say, Arnold without eyebrows is terrifying.
Oh, speaking of that, this is like legit for real. Arnold had his eyebrows insured at Lloyd's of London because he feared they might not grow back properly after he shaved them for the scene where he runs over a car on fire in the alley. I'm like,
wow.
That right there, that is movie making magic. Like, that's what I'm talking about.
That's pretty legendary for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, dude, I love the handheld cameras in this movie. They did a lot of these shots were handheld cameras, so you constantly get a lot of movement. They sped up the car chases slightly to make it a little bit more intense. Yeah. And they did a great job, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of like really tight up close shots too. Like when I love the sequence when Arnold is breaking into Sarah's apartment and the roommate and her boyfriend are there, and she's dancing around listening to music, and then he's whooping up on the boyfriend. But there's just a lot of tight shots while he's kind of moving through the apartment. Yeah, and killing them. But yeah,
I actually really liked it though. That was actually a terrifying scene where like the boyfriend's like half asleep and wakes up, and there's this like dude over him, and he's just he reacts very realistically. He's like, oh crap, and then like had no chance. But the thing I was surprised too though is like the Terminator, I thought he was going to kill a lot more random people, and he really doesn't. He just is like kind of going after his goal, and he did.
Well, he's very systematic. I mean, if you're not on the list or what he thinks is who he's going after, then you're probably okay.
Right. The only thing that didn't make sense to me is maybe they corrected this in T2 and I just didn't understand it. And was in this one, Kyle Reese specifically says that he's the only person that went through the time machine or whatever, and they destroyed it after that. So that way he's stuck in that time frame. It's just him and the Terminator. But then in Terminator 2, obviously they use the time machine to go back. And I don't think they really talk about that in the second movie. I think they just kind of move on. So anyways, but I liked, though, that they had fleshed out Michael Biehn's character enough that they didn't show a lot of the future war, but they gave you enough so that way, especially like when the Terminator shows up and starts shooting everybody, and that's when you find out
in the bunker.
And that's when you find out that he had the picture of Sarah Connor, and that he'd kind of always looked at her as just kind of fell in love with, I think, not just her, but the idea of her. And so when he meets her, he's like overly protective of her, not just the fact that that's his job. That's what he's supposed to do.
Right. It's more than a mission for him.
Right. It's so personal. And I buy that. And I like, too, that the psychiatrist that he has is the main psychiatrist in T2 that's treating Sarah Connor. he's just a douchebag. Like from the very first scene, the first line that he has, he yawns when he's talking to her, which you can see he's so like disconnected. He's just like whatever, like I'm here in the middle of the night, you guys, whatever.
I'm smarter than you, so whatever.
And he just does that like the whole time. And the thing that's pretty intense though, which is, I don't know if they did this back in the 80s. I doubt that they would do this now though, is they're watching the video of the psychiatrist talking to Kyle, and he starts flipping out, and he's like, he'll jam his hand down her throat, and he's like yelling, and she's standing behind the psychiatrist as they're watching the video, and the psychiatrist is like, oh, I'll turn this off. I'm like, dude, she wouldn't even be in the room when they're watching that.
No, I was thinking the same thing. It's like, that's some pretty poor police procedure right there.
Right. But oh man, the movie though, it had a lot. It was fun. It was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. Yeah.
I just can't believe too that how because when I was telling people that we were going to be reviewing this movie, there was people that are like, oh, you got to talk about I need your clothes, your boots, your motorcycle, and all these different lines, and I'm like, bro, those are all from the second movie. And so really when it comes down to it, it's, come with me if you want to live. And it's like all of that, the second movie. The only line in this movie is I'll be back.
Right.
And
well, technically Michael Biehn actually says in the nightclub, come with me if you want to live.
If you want to live. Exactly. Yeah. But that's not what...
That's not Arnold saying it.
Right. And no one talks about that. He was the one that said that first. But the only line that comes out of this movie and then sticks and gets blurred in with the second movie is I'll be back. So, which, I mean, really, that is a high point of the movie when
it is,
when when they tell him he can't come in or whatever it was. And then, the I'll be back. And it was, with his accent and everything, it was like the perfect storm.
Oh, dude.
Going into that, that sequence. But that's crazy. I mean, that's really it, though, for the movie. And then everyone else's recollection of quotes from the Terminator in general are all from the second movie.
Right. And I think the thing that this movie does great is that scene when he just wrecks the police station is, to me, that's the scene where you're like, this guy cannot be stopped. Because he's getting shot. He's like, he gets shot a bunch in that scene. But he's literally just like this monster of this character.
Unstoppable.
Because in the club, like, everybody's freaking out. And I mean, he gets shot like 7 times by Michael Biehn, who I want to know what type of bullets he was using, because otherwise he would have been like some collateral damage there. But definitely, though, the scene, though, when he assesses the police station, says, I'll be back. And then immediately when he comes back with the crashing in with the car, full carnage. And then that's what people were expecting to see when T2 came out, and they delivered 100% with T2. Like you see that immediately, like over the top action sequences that are still pretty believable. And then I think that's why Rise of the Machines, it was terrible because, number one, the villain in that movie was a badly thought out villain. They didn't have a lot of story in the third movie, which the second movie doesn't have a ton of story, but it has a lot of heart between Edward Furlong and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
So much, there's so much chemistry going on that it doesn't really matter that it's
a simple chase movie. It's very simple.
Exactly. That's all it is, trying to get away from the guy. And it's definitely, he's scary, but
he's cool scary.
Cool scary for sure. And this Terminator is just, he's a bad man.
Right.
And you're gonna die.
Right. And I think this movie, he's scarier too because Michael Biehn is 100% human. He's literally a regular guy. And I think they're never going to remake this movie, but I think that if they had remade it, they probably would have made Michael Biehn a little bit more, I guess, special ops kind of or whatever. But at the same time, I like that he was like guerrilla warfare, down and dirty, just do whatever you needed to do.
And plus, I mean, he's genuinely terrified of the Terminator. I mean, he does what he's got to do, but he's got a healthy fear and respect for this machine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think
that definitely translates to where it's like, you know, he's going to do whatever he can to stop him, but he knows odds are not good.
Yes.
And he's scared.
Exactly. And I like that too in this movie. There's a lot of small story in this, like the fact that he says like we won the battle, and then a last ditch effort, Skynet sent the Terminator back to stop it before it started.
Right.
And that's why I think Terminator Salvation was supposed to be awesome, because you were finally going to get the future war battle, and then that would be cool at the end of the trilogy, that you would see Kyle Reese go back in time, and like that'd be like the end of the movie or something like that. It closed the time gap. Right. But they have not had strong writers ever since James Cameron stopped writing it. And so,
right. And it sounds like there's a pretty good chance that once he's done filming the next, no joke, like 6
next 4 sequels,
Avatar movies or whatever he's going to do. I mean, he's doing a ton of those movies that, you know, once those are done, he'll probably, it sounds like, you know, he might go back and actually do another Terminator movie. But
have you heard that?
I was reading something about that, but I mean, that might be 15 years away.
Yeah, no, for real.
He's kind of old. I mean,
just think about it. He was on a roll making a bunch of movies, and then he made Titanic in '97, and then 10 years later he came out with Avatar, and then it's 10 years later now, and we're still waiting for the next couple sequels. And so, anyways, I know we got to wrap this episode up. We got. But it's just fun. I enjoy talking about the first Terminator movie, because it is a sci-fi classic, 100%.
Yeah.
It's not a cult classic. This is a big deal. It influenced, especially T2 influenced action movies.
Right.
I feel like
it kicked off a pretty serious franchise. I mean, say what you will about, unfortunately at this point, majority of the movies in this franchise, but people still show up. I mean, they're always hopeful that maybe this will be the good one.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's why
maybe this will be the one we were waiting for after T2.
Right. That's why I always feel bad for Terminator fans, because it's so easy to hate on this series. But then you watch the first 2 ones and you can see the movie magic and why people loved it.
Right.
And and I remember when Terminator 3 came out, I wanted to see it so bad. And just watching it now, I was like, well, there's one good chase scene in it, but the rest of the movie is not worth it. But also they miscast John Connor horribly. Mm-hmm. But anyways, enough about that bad dream.
Right. But yeah, this movie, I mean, a huge takeaway for me is just it's super impressive for the budget that he had. For the movie that he pulled off.
This movie definitely.
I tip my cap, sir.
Yeah, it shows off the genius of James Cameron that we'll see. We would see over the next 15 years, continually just get more and more. I mean, the guy is super creative. Like I mean, I'm annoyed at how he was dissing the Marvel movies, saying they weren't real movies. But you know what? I enjoy some of his movies a lot, and he's a really good. He's a good. He's not a complex storyteller, but he's good at telling a story that's fun to watch.
Yeah, it's pretty good story building, I would say. I mean, but not, like you said, not complex, not the most.
He's no Christopher Nolan.
Well, there you go. That's a good example of someone that will blow your mind with a story.
Yes.
But it's he tells an entertaining story.
Yes, he does. And he's good at picking. Well, never mind. I take it back. I was going to say he's good at picking stars, but I forgot what's his name, Sam Worthington or whatever, who was in Avatar.
Where's that guy?
I take it back. I mean, like Leonardo DiCaprio. There we go. Sure. All right, so let's roll into our final verdict. So, okay, so was this movie a hit when it came out? Did it hit Yes, I think it blew it away.
Yeah,
don't think there was a lot of faith in this movie. Nobody cared about this movie, and it came out, and it was a matrix of its time. It blew away expectations. People were like, oh, it's just some low-budget movie. There's so many knockoffs of the Terminator series, like so many.
Right. There's a lot. I just watched some really bad 80s horror movie called Chopping Mall about these killer robots. Have you seen that one?
No, not yet. I've heard so much stuff about it. I can't wait to watch it.
It was super fun. But again, it came out in 83. So killer robots chasing you down, nothing new. Oh. But this movie definitely elevated it to a really serious, point.
Right.
And obviously built, some really great things off of it.
Oh, yeah. And also it had a classic 1980s trope, time travel. Because in the 1980s, time travel, man, that's where it's at.
You're right. So, yeah, I would say definitely an A there. And then how about now? How does it hold up?
Let's see. I mean, film history-wise, definitely holds up. It's it's a pivotal point in film history. I personally really liked it. I loved how 80s it is. It is so 80s. Like, it is a hardcore 80s movie. Because versus T2 is almost kind of timeless in a weird way. It's just kind of weird.
It's also the quintessential 90s action movie. And I feel like, I kind of feel like action movies really peaked in the 90s as far as a genre goes. I mean, not that there's not great action movies now, but I feel like there's a lot more to them than there were as far as just pure action goes.
Oh, yeah.
And I think T2, when you're thinking, biggest action movie in the 90s, it's probably that one.
Yeah, like straight up pure action. Yeah, I'm trying to think of another one. I know they had like The Rock and Con Air and stuff like that.
Right. Con Air always comes to mind for me because I remember thinking that was the coolest movie I'd ever seen when that came out. That one.
We'll get to that one.
We
folks.
will get to that one.
We'll get to that one.
Yeah.
That is my favorite little GIF to send out is Nicolas Cage winking.
That is a sentimental turd for me, man.
Oh man. So okay. What do you think? You think it's still relevant?
Today, I mean, I guess I kind of give it a B. Just, it is dated and it's awesome as a classic. For sure, I probably rate it a little bit higher, but just as as it stands, I give it a B, and mainly just because it's still the first in this, pretty popular or very popular franchise. So
right.
I give it a B for relevance today.
Yeah,
I'll have to go with a B as
well. Personal enjoyment. I'm going to give this a B plus for me. I really enjoyed it. I literally thought I was going to crap on this series, and I enjoyed it. This is good. Maybe this is me getting older, and definitely I don't know. I love 80s movies, and this is a very 80s movie, so I really enjoyed it. Michael Biehn, dude, I really enjoyed him in this movie a lot. So
yeah, he is really great.
Being the hero of this movie versus in the second movie, it's more of Arnold and Sarah Connor that are the heroes.
Right.
Anyways, what about yourself?
So going into this, I thought I was going to like it. I remember liking it a lot, especially because, like I said earlier, I had seen it after I saw T2, and I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. But, like I said also earlier, dang you, John Carpenter.
Right?
I just enjoyed his action movies and some other kind of action movies a little bit more from that time period. So I gave it a C. I enjoyed it, but actually I was a little bit surprised I didn't enjoy it as much as I kind of thought I was gonna. But definitely a solid movie.
I was gonna say that's very unusual. Most of the time you enjoy movies more than me. I'm the old cynical person. Right.
But like I said, it was specifically, I had Carpenter in my head. It was crazy. Like I kept drawing comparisons, and it was just certain things that like I said, I've totally become, a Carpenter disciple. So
what do you call it? I don't even know what you would call it.
A Carpenfile? No.
Carpenile. I don't know. I don't know. But this movie, though, I didn't compare it to John Carpenter. I just thought of it as a different 80s movie, and maybe that's why I enjoyed it more. But
and like I said, I didn't mean to do that. I just got hung up on it as I was watching it, and I was like, oh my gosh.
I will agree with you. If the soundtrack was stronger, they didn't just have the whole like do 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 like sound for a majority of the movie, because like the themes for the Terminator is in here, but they're not as good as they are in like Terminator 2. That's where I feel like the soundtrack really shines is in T2, and part of that's also almost 10 years later, so he had a good time to really revisit the idea. And one last thing comparing Terminator 1 and 2 is people say that Terminator 2 is basically a remake of Terminator 1. I mean, it is a chase movie, but I think it stands alone on its enough that they're different enough that I enjoyed that. So, is this a midnight watch for you, sir?
Well, like we've said in a couple past episodes, if the movie were to come on at night and it was the right scene, I would watch it. Is every scene, every segment in this movie watchable for me at the midnight hour? No, not for me.
Okay. No, this movie is not a midnight watch for me, but I I really enjoyed this movie, man. I did not think I was gonna enjoy it as much as I thought. So
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, as you guys might have noticed on the last episode, we decided to cut out the movie quotes for the next one for right now, and if we're gonna try this out and just kind of keep dropping new stuff every week and changing it up and seeing how things go, what you guys like, what you don't like, and what we like, what we don't like.
Exactly. What we might like.
Exactly. I mean, yeah. So we'll see. Well, you'll see some changes over time. We're constantly evolving, hopefully getting better.
Right.
We'll
and if
see.
you absolutely are missing the quotes and whatnot, please let us know. We will succumb to popular demand for certain things.
Oh yeah, we'll sell out in a hot minute. Oh yeah, we have no morals or virtues about this.
You throw enough money at us, we'll do anything.
We'll do anything. Almost anything.
They're gonna backtrack on that one a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, okay, just kidding, guys. All right, so that wraps up today's episode. If you want to check out this movie, so I watched this on Amazon Prime. Did you watch this on Amazon Prime?
Yes, I did, and unfortunately, I think it's not on there anymore. I think we caught it like the last week it was on.
No, that was it's still on there. It was on. Not Stars. It was on, what's the other program?
Hulu?
No, Showtime. It was on Showtime 1 and 2, and then they both dropped off on August 31st. But it's still on Amazon Prime. How is that?
Well, good.
How do I know that? Because I watched the movie today.
Awesome.
I got up early. I got up at 6 in the morning to watch this movie before I went to work. That's how committed I am to this podcast.
Dedication, folks. Dedication.
And the fact that we had moved over the last week, and so things have been crazy in a good way. But anyways, special thanks to our sound producer, Jake Colvin. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you shared this with your friends or anyone that you think that would like this.
That's correct. And please subscribe if you haven't already on iTunes. We'd love a 5-star rating would be fantastic. And,
or a 4. We'd even take
4-star.
We'd take a 1-star. Okay, no. Actually, no.
Well, at that point, keep your opinions to yourself. But
1 plus 4 stars.
No, but yeah, please check us out on any place you like to get your podcast. We're on, I would say, most of them, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to contact us, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We're trying to get our YouTube channel going. And also, you can email us at the midnightwatchpodcast@gmail.com.
That's right. We are up on Amazon and Audible now, and we just love talking movies. So hit us up, and we'll get the dialogue going. So thanks, guys. You have an awesome week, and as always, keep up the watch.